So all of our investments are private investors. We do not have any institutional capital involved in my fund. Now, there is a lot of institutional capital in this space, but for us, our investors will buy these barrels at new fill age. We'll age them in our warehouse for 3 to 8 years, ideally. The whiskey brands really determine how long we age them because they tell us, hey, we want to put a 6-year-old product in the bottle, a 4-year-old, an 8-year-old, whatever they want is what we'll put when we'll pull the barrels. And so the investors then receive the benefit of that when we sell those barrels. And, to date, we've seen well over 20% annualized returns on investment.
Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey folks, welcome back to the show. Today's guest, Morgan Salsman, is the founder of Liquid Assets, a multi-vertical company operating at the intersection of bourbon, alternative investments, and commercial real estate. She oversees barrel acquisition, bonded warehousing, and brand advisory services that support emerging and established whiskey brands nationwide. She is known for her data-driven approach, long-term asset strategy, and hands-on leadership within the spirits industry. Morgan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Great to have you on here. Bourbon and commercial real estate investing. Let's talk about it. You're the first person that I've had on the show who's combined both of these spaces. Walk me through how you got into the bourbon space.
Yeah. So, for me, it's kind of a basic story. I grew up in Bardstown, Kentucky, which is the bourbon capital of the world, and got the opportunity to start investing in whiskey barrels when I was in college, also pursuing my civil engineering degree. So it's kind of where the overlap started, kind of two separate passions, and they ended up merging into one. So at my engineering job, I got the opportunity to actually develop our whiskey warehouses where we store about 70,000 barrels right now. That was the last project that I did before I jumped over into the whiskey world full time. And so kind of got to dabble in both spaces and choose which one fit me the best. And luckily both skill sets have served me well.
You grew up around real estate investors. Your parents were investors. You were mentioning to me before the show. So you grew up balancing checkbooks and tracking rents. And so this is a bigger scale, but bourbon was the entryway. And so you thought, hey, if they're doing this, I can do this too.
Yeah, so my dad owned a construction company for the majority of my life, which is also kind of what got me into the civil engineering world in the first place. And they had many rental properties when I was growing up. And so, yeah, I helped them manage, invoicing and payroll. That was really what my job was, balancing checkbooks manually by hand. Didn't have any of this digital stuff then. And, it showed me almost that real estate investing is second nature and it's part of your investment portfolio. It doesn't have to be, a full-time day job or this, like you can do both. My uncle and my aunt are also very heavily invested. So, my family's always been very invested in that space. And so it exposed me to it and taught me about it really young and taught me about the lifestyle that you have to live of unclogging toilets at 5 p.m. on a Friday and mowing the grass on Saturday afternoons. Like you learn about that kind of stuff. And so I have my own personal rental properties, and then the warehousing space that we have is my first experience with commercial real estate. And so I've been able to kind of learn. It's treated basically like a storage facility, like a self storage almost, because you put the barrels away and they stay there. So, it's renting space at the end of the day, and there's not a lot of movement. So once the barrels go in, they stay, and you really just have to worry about maintaining.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
Compliance more than anything.
Do you rent out the space to folks who need some space to house their barrels? Is that the business model there?
Yes. So our warehouses are bonded. So, we are registered with the KDA, or sorry, not the KDA. We are registered with the state and, the federal government to be able to house whiskey barrels because it's, a regulated product, it's alcohol. So we will rent the space out to brands, to distilleries, to investment groups that need a place to store their barrels legally so that, they got a place to age because you can't put a whiskey barrel in your backyard, unfortunately, if it's full of whiskey.
Yeah, that would be an interesting way to hack a bourbon business. But
Yes.
I want to ask you about acquiring that warehouse. What was that deal like, and how do you go about looking for a whiskey warehouse?
That's a great question. So we actually built ours from scratch. That was one of the projects I got to help design at my engineering firm. As I mentioned earlier, I have two partners on the warehousing side. One of them is a mechanical engineer, and the other one was my father, who owned the construction company. And so between the three of us, we were able to design this project from scratch and build it. And so, it wasn't really an acquisition. We acquired the land and built the warehouses, and we actually have space to build two more on site. But it is a really hard thing to convert an existing space into a compliant warehouse because there are so many stringent regulations about separation distances from the property line, building to building. There's a lot of separation differences. There are containment regulations that you have to have in terms of, you know, what happens if the building burns down and there's hundreds of thousands of gallons of flammable whiskey floating around. You really have to be able to take in those environmental considerations. And my engineering background taught me a lot about that. And honestly, it made the project so fun to design and develop because of that. I got
Yeah.
to find my passion for the spirits industry and, my hometown and my heritage with my day job. And it made it pretty exciting to go to work every day. I'll tell you that.
Now, is it one main tenant that is renting out the warehouse, or is it several tenants that use the space?
So I believe we're around 12 to 15 customers that we have that fill up our warehouse. One of those is my fund itself. So my fund liquid assets has about 14,000 barrels that we have in our warehouse. And then the rest of the 56,000 barrels that we have on site are for other customers. And there's a variety of, distilleries, brands, investment groups similar to ours that also store on site.
Now, I'm imagining there's maintenance involved in this, and then you've got to keep things at a certain temperature and so forth. What goes into maintaining a whiskey warehouse?
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency, it's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
Great question. So ours are not temperature controlled, and that is because when you're aging whiskey, you want it to be able to be exposed to the elements almost. So you want that freezing temperature at night in the middle of the winter to affect the barrels as much as you want the heat of the summer at noon, to affect it. So you want that extreme hot and that extreme cold to environment to reach your barrels. So that way the wood will expand and contract, allowing the liquid to, seep in and out of the barrel, which gives the liquid its color and flavor. So we don't have conditioning, but we do have a ventilation system. And so what that does is you shut these gates and it literally acts as a convection oven to heat up the warehouse during the day. And then at night, you flip those gates open, run the fans, and it will make the inside of the warehouse the same temperature as the outside. And so that's what allows this heating and cooling cycle to help those barrels expand and contract and gather all of the flavor and color that we, experience in the glass at the end of the day.
What's the size of whiskey warehouses in Kentucky? Are they all, massive sprawling warehouses? Do you have some smaller ones? Is it a mix in between? How many whiskey warehouses are there in Kentucky?
There are quite a few. If you drive around Kentucky or my hometown, Bardstown specifically, you'll see them all over the place. And there are two different kinds. There is a rick house and a palletized warehouse facility. A rick house is specially designed with these interior wood structures to it's a racking system. So the barrels go into these racks and they lay on their side. Where in a palletized facility, they go on, traditional pallets and they're standing kind of up on their head. And so you stack them on top of each other. Ours are palletized facilities. And so I believe the largest you can build is 7 stories high when you're stacking them up. Ours are, I believe, we have two sizes. We have one that's, I believe, around 24,000 square feet, and the other two around 48,000 square feet. So double. The first one we built was a smaller one. Then we learned we could go higher and we could make them bigger. So we built the other ones to be a little bit more efficient with the space. And so, we can hold about 100,000 barrels on site with the 3 warehouses that we have today.
Yeah.
And if we add our other 2, we'll be able to hold about 180,000 barrels on site. So it's like 40,000 barrels a warehouse when we're talking about that larger size of that 48,000 square footprint.
Being a whiskey investor has got to be interesting because it's a whole new world I haven't thought about before. But I'm thinking about like time to age a barrel and how that goes into play for the value of the barrel. But then also, the rents and where am I renting and then where am I sending this to and the cost of transport. What's the underwriting like on a barrel of whiskey?
So all of our investments are private investors. We do not have any institutional capital involved in my fund. Now, there is a lot of institutional capital in this space, but for us, our investors will buy these barrels at new fill age. We'll age them in our warehouse for 3 to 8 years, ideally. The whiskey brands really determine how long we age them because they tell us, hey, we want to put a 6-year-old product in the bottle, a 4-year-old, an 8-year-old, whatever they want is what we'll put when we'll pull the barrels. And so the investors then receive the benefit of that when we sell those barrels. And, to date, we've seen well over 20% annualized returns on investment. And we anticipate to be able to see great returns. However, the industry has definitely seen more capital come in. And so obviously supply and demand
Yeah.
plays a little bit of a role in that, but we're still confident in the industry and the ability to grow because the barrels will continue to appreciate in value over time until you dump them. So you could hold these for 20 years and they're going to continue to appreciate in value. Whiskey gets rarer as it gets older, especially in American whiskey. You have something getting up to 20 years old, you know. It's different when you go over to
Right.
Scotland and Ireland when they've been doing this for much longer than we have, but it's rare to find that type of inventory nowadays in the US at least.
Now, when we talk about this space as a whole, I'm imagining that you have certain regions, like you mentioned, where you're at in Kentucky, where this is a more common endeavor than in other markets. Are there, warehouses in other regions of the country, and is this something that's very specific to certain markets, or are people looking at opening up, warehouses in other regions as well?
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
So 95% of the world's bourbon comes from Kentucky. And bourbon has to be made in the United States. It cannot be made. Whiskey, different story, but bourbon specifically as a category has to be made in the United States. It can be made anywhere. It doesn't have to be made in Kentucky. And there are other distilleries outside of Kentucky and Tennessee. I live in Tennessee, grew up in Kentucky, but that's the densest region for whiskey and bourbon to be produced. I really think it's just like a settlers thing. The people who settled in this area really were about the whiskey, and Kentucky will tell you it's about the water, and Tennessee will tell you it's about the charcoal finish, and there's a million reasons and a great marketing story behind all of them. But at the end of the day, it's a culture, and this is the densest population of distilleries in the U.S. However, you go out to Colorado, Texas has a good culty population of Texas produced or Texas distilled inventory. California has a few, New York has a few. You can go all over the country and there are going to be other distilleries. They just may not be as well known as Kentucky and Tennessee are.
Now, from a valuation perspective on the real estate, how do you go about valuing what a distillery is at any given point in time? I'm imagining, in a place like Kentucky, you may have more buyers, right? But it's not like distilleries are selling every day, so it's probably not as easy to find comps, right?
Right. Well, I have not spent much time evaluating distilleries as a whole in my life. But there are definitely opportunities to, evaluate that on the market. There's warehouses that go up for sale. There are full plants and distilleries. There's co-packers. There are opportunities. I would say consult a business broker or consult a, real estate professional in that region to kind of really get your details right on that. But for us, we're not doing a lot of trading. We're just building from scratch.
I spoke with someone recently who had got an airport under contract, and I said, "Wow,
Wow.
that's a tough deal." I'm thinking about selling a distillery now. I'm thinking that's an
There
interesting
you
market
go.
to be a part of. I'm licensed in Texas as a realtor, and in San Antonio there was this old, and I believe it was brand of beer, the Pearl Company, Pearl. I hope I'm not butchering this story. And they had transformed this whole plant into this beautiful multi-use space that was a mix of commercial residential. I believe they have quite a bit of retail as well, restaurants. And I'm like, whoever did that deal, bravo to them, because seriously, you have to be creative in order to look at this. And you mentioned, going into it from the development perspective. Do you know when other folks are looking at creating a distillery or building a distillery, are they looking more so into development? Are there advantages in development versus in acquiring a pre-established distillery?
I mean, I definitely think there are. You can think about like depreciation. You can think about, cost to develop. And in Kentucky, land is still pretty cheap. So, there's definitely value in it. If I were coming into the space right now, I don't know that I would start from scratch just because of the timelines.
Yeah.
When you got to think about it, there's so many phases to developing a whiskey. So from like inception to finished product, you have distillation from a distillery. Then you can have, somebody like us in the middle. We buy it at new fill, age it for the brand. Then the brand buys it from us for say 8 years later. And then, they have to put it on the shelf. And so that life cycle from inception of a distillery. So say it takes 2 years to build, probably, best case scenario, you design and build it in 2 years. You'll, add those 2 years and you have another 8 before you put a product in the bottle, that's 10 years that you have before you can even start seeing a return on that investment. And so, that's where there's value in this sourcing world that we live in. And so that's where, you're buying from somebody like us who has bought barrels 8 years ago and has product for you to put in the bottle today that meets your criteria. So, there's a lot of risk associated with developing a distillery because it's so time intensive and capital intensive.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to predict that 10 years down the road, what's going to happen, what's production going to be like. And it's a risky game, but there's a lot of reward in it too, got to
I'm
take big.
think I'm thinking about all the interesting conversations. There's a whole real estate, vernacular that has to exist out there that is very specific to like Tennessee and Kentucky. Uh,
Absolutely.
that I would love to be a part of that conversation. And I think about like Texas real estate where I'm licensed and farm and ranch and how you have
Yeah.
to take into account it's a whole other area of real estate and who owns the mineral rights. And no one's thinking about that in northern New Jersey where I was,
Right.
born and raised. And so I'm now thinking, okay, well, what are these conversations like in the whiskey and distillery world? But we are coming up on time here though, Morgan. Where can folks go? Where can our audience go if they're interested in learning more about your company, Liquid Assets, or in reaching out to you and maybe getting your feedback on where they can store their barrels?
Absolutely. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can just look up my name, Morgan Salsman. And then I also have a website. I've got a ton of blogs, videos, articles, and things on there too. It's lqdassets.co. And so you can find me there. Reach out to me any way, shape, or form. I'm pretty responsive. So would love to chat whiskey or real estate, either one.
Morgan, thank you for coming on the show today.
Of course. Thanks for having me. This was great.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.